Happy Monday. Now, for those of you who are normally with us, I know the podcast says Stan and Bryn, and clearly this is not Bryn. So, so I'm delighted to have Larry Holt with us today. I'm going to have him introduce himself, tell us a little bit about his work in economic and workforce development. But this is a kind of a different spin on how people are leveraging Sales Navigator. So I'm so happy, Larry, that you decided to join us.
I know. Thank you for having me, Stan.
Yes, my pleasure. So let's go ahead and jump in, because one of the things I've found is that the time that we have, we try to keep these at 30 minutes or under, generally speaking, and the time goes by like that, especially once we start to get into some of the nuts and bolts.
I don't really listen to anything over 30 minutes, so that makes perfect sense to me.
Yep, yep, that's part of the logic. Yep, so if you would, go ahead and tell us a little bit about, your current role and your history in economic development.
Yeah. So again, great to be here. And currently I'm working as an advisor with a lobbying group out of Austin, Texas, and I'm in Los Angeles, California. And my economic development and workforce development career has goes back 15 odd years. And so, economic development is really about attracting investment. So, as my career has progressed, that's taken on a fundraising component as well, which is where I think our discussion today is going to be helpful to your audience. And I suppose, there's really two key things I'd like to share. And here is, one, you really need to embrace the we're all in sales mentality, right? So, if you're, a member relations manager with a nonprofit, you are constantly representing and selling to your organization, selling for your organization. So, I think for me, dealing with investors, it's really important to kind of embrace that. And I think everything we're going to talk about today is looking for opportunities to create new engagement. And so when we think about really activating our investor base, our membership base, what are those new touch points we can develop? And then finally, it goes without saying that, none of this really works if you're not active on the platform as well. Whether that's liking or commenting or creating your own posts, it's important to build your network and really have a presence on it to get the most use out of it.
Great. Thank you. Yes, yes. So, and thanks for that kind of overview of the stakeholders in your world. As many of us are talking to our sales, talking to everything from CFOs to CIOs, and it's a different audience, but I really appreciate what you said about we're all in sales
That's
in
right.
terms of outreach and promoting our organization and our solutions.
Yeah.
So in terms of Sales Nav specifically, I don't know, do you have a sense of how many of your peers use Sales Navigator, or are you kind of unusual?
I certainly think at the executive level, people are using it. In terms of
Okay.
my peers, it's an incredible platform, and more to the point, I think, as it's one of the most cost-effective B2B solutions out there. You can pay thousands of dollars for other platforms, but for a relatively modest price, I think Sales Navigator gives you a lot of bang for your buck.
Yes, yes, exactly. I think it was Forrester Research just came out with a report that I'm sure Sales Nav is delighted with, because a couple of the stats were a 312% ROI from Sales Navigator among the companies that it surveyed, and that on average, Sales Navigator paid itself back within 6 months.
It's highly cost effective. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a very, I've been using it really pretty heavily since like 2016, and
Okay. Okay.
I was always tempted to use it. And then as my roles grew, I found I couldn't live without it.
Okay. So it sounds like you were using LinkedIn to do some of the same things. And then, of course, you get the messages saying, hey, check out all these additional filters in Sales Nav. Is that more or less what got you to give it a try?
Yeah, when did I don't even know when I joined LinkedIn. I guess it would have been like around 2007 or 2008. And then, yeah, as my roles grew and I started getting the, even more search filters, I gave it a shot. And I'm just on the core plan, and I'm sure that's something you go over with your customers quite a bit. But
Yeah.
I find plenty of utility just using that core plan to prospect for new accounts. I think account search is a little underutilized, leads, and then all the really kind of granular filters that the platform offers are great. And so, if I might, just for a second, as we kind of get into the meat of this,
Sure.
we first posited that, okay, I'm in sales for my nonprofit organization, whether that's, customer success and managing my board or identifying new potential board members and investors for our nonprofit. So, at that point, we've got to kind of think a little bit. So the next question is, what is the ideal customer profile for my
Hmm.
organization? And so that ICP is so critical to your success. And for most nonprofits, it's going to be really the same group. It's going to be your foundations, it's going to be philanthropies, and it's going to be kind of, the business service providers in a lot of cities that are kind of the corporate citizens of the nonprofit community.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Perfect. And one of the things I was curious about is if you could just talk about some of your favorite features and of Sales Nav and how you use them.
Here's something that I've got a ton. First off, and one thing I'm going to be talking about here a little bit in our conversation today is I like letting Sales Navigator do the work for me,
There you go.
and I think that's one of the that for new users, there's a lot to take in. You suddenly have access to hundreds of millions of profiles, but you can start boiling the ocean pretty quick. And there's
Hmm.
tools in saved searches for leads,
Yep.
for accounts, and even your account lists that are, I think, are useful to everyone. So some of my filters I like, these are my own hacks, are LinkedIn groups, seeing who else is in your shared LinkedIn group for, I don't know, say a tech initiative in your community. And a lot of
Mm.
times nonprofits are very focused on the community they're in. So, how do we find people that are interested and have shared interests in the success of the community?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Alumni. I
Oh.
think alumni is super underrated for, kind of finding who those people are. And then, as you know, it's really easy to find, uh, who your new followers are. And of course, if you're managing a page, you already get access to that. But what if you could really kind of apply those Sales Navigator advanced filters to who your followers are? That helps you refine, who that ideal customer profile is for your company. And so, like I said, I let it work for me. I'm gonna, here's a hack, Stan. This is one of the easiest things in the world. It is a saved lead search.
Hmm.
Just go in, do first degree connections, and
Yep.
change jobs in the past 90 days, and then save that search. And why would you do that? Well, unfortunately, I found out a few years back, like a really close colleague had changed jobs without doing the "Hey, I'm happy to announce" thing on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So,
Right.
a lot, again, it gets back to those opportunities to reach out. So there's really like a two filter search that will have you being really on top of your network.
hmm I love the fact that you say let Sales Navigator do the work for you, because that's part of the power of the tool, and the fact that some of the things that its algorithm is doing for us and surfacing for us, we would have no way of seeing when you start talking about things like buyer intent, and they're bringing in data on people that are visiting your company page. You you have no visibility into that
And I
yourself.
know when you set it up, when you first create an account, it says who are your, it offers some sort of wizards to help you.
Yes, your
But
persona.
I mean, I'm sure I don't use any of those that I did, 8 or 9 years ago. So
Yeah.
you, like everything in life, a little bit of work on the front end really pays off. And, I can kind of go and spend like 30 minutes, I guess, on my saved searches in the morning and scan for, new leads,
hmm
and new
hmm
opportunities for engagement. And, that's a pretty good use of, that's a pretty modest investment, that pays off really quickly when you've done that work on the front end. But
Yeah.
and I don't even use personas just because I'm, so used to doing things my way. But they're adding new tools that continue to do the work for you.
Yes, there's some AI powered tools that are coming that they've hinted at. Uh, Bryn actually got a chance to see them at LinkedIn when she went there to visit, but I don't believe they'll be rolled out until first quarter,
Okay.
unless they pleasantly surprise us and do it sooner. But what you said, one thing I did want to highlight about what you said about a little bit of work up front pays off big time, because when working with clients, I tell them a lot of the work that goes into a great LinkedIn and Sales Navigator strategy has nothing to do with LinkedIn and Sales Nav. It is identifying who, as you said, your ideal customer profile or persona, or whatever you want to call it, how you describe them, and of course, what the value is that you can bring to them, what pain points you solve for them. All of that you're doing ideally before you dive into Sales Navigator. And as you said, try to boil the ocean there, because there's so much you can do with the tool and it's
Oh,
easy to get overwhelmed.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're a strategic relations person, or a VP, or a president of a nonprofit. And what you want is that you're regularly engaging with your customers. And really, from a nonprofit perspective, you know they shouldn't be hearing from you once a year when you send an invoice, right? So, uh, I'm sure
Exactly.
there's a private sector analog for that as well. So, LinkedIn has a lot of tools that make it really easy for you. And, happy to dive into some really basic examples too.
Yep. Very true. Very true. Great. So I know you talked a little bit about save searches and how that does some of the work for you, because you get notified of new save search results. And as you said, you just take some time in the morning. Now it sounds like that's a fairly regular part of your schedule. It's not something that you do randomly from the way that you put it. Is that
I,
fair
uh,
to assume?
I have found the saved searches to just be an incredibly valuable piece of it for me. And so, I mean, and when you go and let's say your ICP is like, new business development executives within your local construction industry, perhaps.
hmm hmm
Maybe your nonprofit is helping develop workforce solutions for the construction industry. Very common problem all over the U.S. Well, building that search is going to take some time, but if you save it, then you just have access to any changes that are there, and it updates automatically for you every day. You know,
Yep.
let it do the work for you. Again, like we said a couple of times. So
Good deal. Good deal. I'm going to ask one question that is somewhat selfish because I'm involved with the Workforce Development Board in our local county here in New Jersey. So we're trying to connect job seekers with employers, and interestingly enough, employers say they can't find enough people to fill the positions that they have, and there are other people looking for a job, and also bringing in, of course, the public sector, uh, local government, state government, federal government, and then the universities, the educational piece. So we're trying to connect all of those.
right,
And you've done work with workforce development
I
also, I
have.
say. Yeah.
Yes.
How is working with workforce development, the way I just described it, versus nonprofits different, if at all, for you?
Let's assume, someone's in a nonprofit supporting that workforce initiative.
Okay.
Um, I don't think it would be that different. I mean, again, here's an example where you're wanting to build engagement, probably with the 2-year system, right? And
Okay.
that's where a lot of great training takes place. So there's just another opportunity to engage with the stakeholders, and um, using account search. Um, let's say you had some new initiative at the Workforce Investment Board, the WIB, and
Yep. Yep. Yep.
jargony language in workforce
Exactly.
development.
Exactly. Yep. And they
You
keep
can
changing
go
the names.
you can go into your account search, and you can search for companies by growth rates. Okay,
Exactly.
and so there's a fairly way to have those kind of job developers that work for the work source centers identify new companies for placement. So
Hmm.
everything on Sales Navigator translates to higher ed, 2-year, and workforce development as well, and across the nonprofit space, Stan.
Fantastic. Yep. That is very helpful. That's very helpful. It's funny, I was going to ask you about your favorite Sales Navigator feature because you've talked about several, but I keep hearing Save Search. Um, Other than Save Search, are there any other kind of favorite features or things that you find yourself using repeatedly?
Well, let's drill down for the audience and just really show them what a safe search could look like, because I don't know if there's not a lot of training out there on the platform. If you were to kind of
Mhm.
criticize it, it's just kind of give them your credit card and go. So let's demystify this for them a little bit, Stan. Um, Here's something really easy that I think everybody that's in a nonprofit that has a Sales Navigator license should do. Go, we're going to create a lead list. And so take the members of your board of directors and go and kind of look them up one by one. We're going to do a little work on the front end. And when you see like a lead there, like Stan Robinson, you'll see a little button that says save. And what you want to do is save that board member to a new list. Call it My Board 2023 or whatever. And so, if you take your boards and committees and put them in that lead list,
Yep.
you know what you've created? A dashboard. At that point, you have an entire visibility into all the supporters of your organization, and you can see who is in the news when you click on that lead list. You can see who's posted content recently, who's changed jobs. And so, a lot of people pay a lot of money for those type of dashboards. And,
Yeah.
that's just a tool built within the system. And so, that's kind of the most basic thing in the world. And, if you want to step it up, let's take this to the graduate level, and let's try and find some new funders. So, Let's first off, we're going to do account search. You can see lead filters and account filters at the top. Under account filters, go in, put your state that you're in, and
Mhm.
then put for industry philanthropic fundraising services. That is the industry category for foundations and philanthropies. And we're starting at the state level because, there's not hundreds of these, even in a city like Los Angeles. So,
Yeah.
um, we're going to go ahead and put that in, and we're going to filter by employee size to get the largest ones. Really, all we're trying to do is get this to the largest foundations in our state, and around 25 is what we want. Once we've got that dialed in, there's a box that says check all. We're going to save those 20 foundations, and then we're going to view their current employees, which is the button right next to check all. And then, then we're in the lead advanced filters, and then we can kind of go and look at our first and second degree connections. Um, and then we're going to save that as a lead search. So we've created a lead list for our board that's a dashboard. And now we have a lead search of foundations in our areas. And it'll, once we're notified of new results, we can see all the movement and opportunity taking place within those foundations. So, you know, that's um, that's some advanced level stuff that I think any nonprofit out there could really use for their own continued success for their community and their stakeholders.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. That is a perfect example of what you can do with Sales Navigator and surface people and activities that you can engage with. One thing, um, you mentioned being able to save leads and accounts. And once upon a time, and for some people, you may see the familiar big save button, which is perfectly logical. Well, Sales Nav is changing that to add to list, which is not as intuitive. So if you don't see a save button,
Well, it's get notified of new results.
at, you'll see it hasn't hit you yet. If you still see the save button, I wish they'd kept that, but I do not have a save button anymore.
I don't have a
And what,
save button. They've moved it up top where it says I can get notified of new results.
yes, that is to save the search itself.
Yes,
And so they've replaced that save button with, as you just said, get notified of new results. But when you're on a lead profile, once upon a time you'd hit save
right,
because you want to save it. Now
right.
you will not see save. You will see the option to add to list. Now,
Uh,
since these things roll out, what really gets fun for those of us who are doing training is that we may be seeing one view and the person we're talking to is seeing a different view. Sometimes they're ahead of us, they've got the new view, and sometimes they're behind us. Um,
well,
yeah,
if they changed it, I will say, um, and we're daily users of the platform who sometimes get frustrated. I mean, those saved searches has created extra steps, but add to list. That's what I'm going for anyway. So maybe they cut down on a step, and maybe in the end, it's the same number of steps, but just done confusingly. So I don't.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
That
not. I'm not smart enough to work in product management.
and I will leave it at that. That's well put, though. Yeah, it's the same number of steps, but just less clearly.
That's right.
Um, but yes, so thank you for that breakdown. And as I said, the time goes by super fast. The time permitting, the one thing I did want to touch on is when you see activity.
Mm.
It could be a post, it could be changing jobs. How do you engage? And then how do you take that from, a comment, congratulations on your new job, into a conversation where you can start to talk about
Right.
the
Well,
topic?
I mean, that's our job, right? Is to engage, and so what we're looking for with all of, I mean, we're not setting up all these searches to, just to nerd out. It's to look for opportunities for engagement. So, depending on, like, if I see a first degree connection, somebody I'm close with that's changed jobs, I'll probably send them a note, maybe to their personal email. Maybe it's a member of my nonprofit's executive committee, and I'll flag it for my nonprofit's president to say, hey, our vice chair has changed jobs. You may want to reach out. And then, depending on where they are in your network, maybe you see someone's joined an organization that is not a current member, but you have a close connection to that person. Then I'd probably reached out on the Sales Navigator platform itself. Wait, I would actually reach out on regular LinkedIn as opposed to, they like the messaging on Sales Navigators, like, not good. I don't understand it. So, and also, not everybody has Sales Navigator. So if you see that opportunity to engage, I'm sure you recommend to the people you train to make sure you reach out to them on regular LinkedIn because they have more of a chance of seeing that.
I've seen it. Exactly.
But now that we've got our dashboard, we've got all these opportunities to engage and reach out to the people that are going to make our organization successful.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's funny, literally a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about the messaging and the fact that even though you can send messages through Sales Nav, the communication between LinkedIn and Sales Navigator is not ideal. So we do exactly what you mentioned. We say, hey, use LinkedIn for direct messages. A lot of times it's just simpler.
Let's we're not LinkedIn employees. I mean, the best communication is going to be, just through their normal email, or even phone, or maybe you've got an event coming up and you just want to talk to that person in person, those are great, so although I'm using this advanced digital platform, I'm looking for the most I'm looking for the most analog way possible to reach out and engage.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Because our goal is to use the tool to get to a conversation. Our goal is not to stay on.
That's a real life conversation.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly. Not DMs all day.
That's right.
Super. Last two things, if I might.
They're quick. Yeah.
Yep. These will be fast. You mentioned groups.
Yeah.
Do you find in the nonprofit world that some of the LinkedIn groups are more active, that people are actually engaged there, or do you mainly go look at them just to see who's joined them because you know that they'll have an interest in that particular topic?
I think they've changed groups around a good bit, but there's still like really good ways to network. And so, let's go to, you talked about workforce investment boards, and there's a net. So really, I think the best groups are kind of your national groups. So that would be like your National Association of Workforce Development Boards. That's a good way to find peers. Urban Land Institute. So those are really rich groups when you join on the national level, and then you can kind of reverse engineer it and go, well, who else from my community is interested in this enough to maybe be engaged in these urban issues like Urban Land Institute or workforce issues that I'm not already talking to.
Okay, perfect. Great. And Larry, lastly, any other thing that you would like to mention that we hadn't already touched on?
I'm sure that you advise your clients to, if they subscribe to Sales Navigator, that they have access to the Sales Navigator community. And as I'm sure you're aware,
Mhm.
Microsoft has decreased some of its support on the platform. So, that community has become a really kind of critical way for your power users to really identify what's changing on the platform and what features may be added or hopefully not taken away.
Well said. Yes. Yes. Well, listen, I want to thank you for making this time to come join us and share your insights as far as the use of Sales Navigator in the nonprofit world. The principles are still the same, different audience, but same principles.
We're all in sales, and let the platform work for you.
Yep.
So
Love it. Perfect summary. Larry, thank you so much.
thank you, Stan.
All right. And have a great rest of the day. We'll be in touch.